We are live. Welcome, everybody. I'll tell you what, I am so excited for today's masterclass. Emotional intelligence and understanding emotional intelligence has changed my life. And full disclosure, I'm not the foremost expert on emotional intelligence. I've come from a place of being very emotionally unintelligent. And I've learned so much, and I want to give you information that's going to help you have more fulfilling relationships, do better with your business, identify and attract more people, and 3 things that will help you become more emotionally intelligent. So let me know if you're listening to this live or on the replay. Okay, comment below. All right, comment below. If you feel spunky today and you're ready to learn something, put "Let's rock," okay? Or just let us know where you're watching this from. If you don't want to put "Let's rock" in there, what part of the world? Also, hundreds to thousands of people will see this broadcast, not only live today, but on the replay. And you never know, there's someone out there who is hoping, praying, looking for a solution to solve their problem. You might be that solution to their problem. So comment below with who you are, what you do, and who you serve, how you solve their problem, okay? All right. This is an opportunity for all of you to network as well. The more engaged you are in social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, wherever you engage on content, this mostly is for LinkedIn, the more engaged you are, the more likely you're going to find networking opportunities, collaboration opportunities, and yes, new clients, right? Okay, don't hesitate to ask any questions in the chat. I will eventually get to them. Today I'm going to talk about the foundation, and remember this, or just think of this. If your house didn't have a foundation, it isn't going to stand. If your emotions don't have a foundation, then they're going to be all over the place because there isn't something for them to stand on. I'm going to talk about the foundation for leading your team effectively. Having more meaning. Let me slow down a little bit. The foundation for having more meaningful communications with your prospects, with your team, so that you can influence them and grow and scale your business, so you can influence other people and have better relationships, more fulfilling, okay? Emotional intelligence, EI or EQ. People, they both mean the same thing, okay? You know, when I first started seeing emotional intelligence pop up, I was confused because people made it so complicated. They were giving definitions that didn't make sense, and that's always a problem. If you're speaking to someone, you need to speak to them at the 4th grade level, not because they're idiots, but because the most important commodity in today's age, 2022 and beyond, is people's time and attention. And so you need to speak to them in a way that makes sense, okay? So as I was looking at emotional intelligence, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. The definition which makes the most sense to me is from Harvard Business Review. I'll read this. An individual's ability, that means your ability, to accurately recognize, understand, and manage, this is important, your own emotions. That's where it starts. Understand your own emotions and that of others. A lot of people think it's about reaching people based on their motivators as far as emotional intelligence. And yes, that's important. But if you don't understand your own emotions, and if you don't understand what those signals from your emotions are telling you, your emotions will control you instead of you controlling them. And that will prevent you from having a team that looks to you, that is inspired by you, that will prevent you from getting more and more clients that are a good fit for you, from connecting with prospective clients. Okay? So did you catch that? It starts with, first and foremost, understanding your own emotions and then that of others. All right? Say it one more time. An individual's ability to understand your own emotions and that of others so you can influence people. You can't influence people if you don't understand your own emotions. And then you can't understand other people's emotions and be able to influence them if you don't have the foundation of understanding your own emotions. By the way, excuse my language, my mom would smack me if she's still alive if she heard me use this word. I sucked at understanding my own emotions. I suppressed them most of my life. And that's what made me very emotionally unintelligent. According to Talent Smart, out of the top 33 skills in business and workplace, the number one skill in predictor of success is the skill set of emotional intelligence. So this isn't, hey, this is the number 3, this is the number 6. It's the number 1. And not only predictor of success, it's predictor of having healthy relationships in business and in life. As I said, this was a weakness in my life. And growing in emotional intelligence, it expanded my entire universe. I realized how much I needed to continue to grow. And I'll share my story here in a second. Emotional intelligence is the number 1 predictor of your success in business and in life. I know I'm being redundant, but I'm being redundant on purpose because this is important. Anytime you hear something is number 1, it's number 1 for a reason, okay? It helps you have a more fulfilled life because it helps you develop more meaningful relationships in business and in life. It helps you have a more effective marketing strategy in sales process because you're understanding your emotions. You should understand this is where I start with my clients, the needs and wants of your target market, the main need and want in your target market. And when you know that, you can speak to them intelligently through your content, through your communications, through your marketing, because you know and understand them. You know yourself, and you can communicate in a way that influences them and starts to attract them to you. Marketing is all about building confidence in your prospect's mind about you being able to solve their problem. And when you're emotionally intelligent, you could do it that much more effectively, okay? I learned about emotional intelligence the hard way. And my hope is today, you can learn from my failures. It's always easier to learn from someone else's failures, but sometimes we have to, in my case, most of my life, I had to learn things the hard way. It took me 50 years to get to this point to start to embrace emotional intelligence. I'm a slow learner, but once I hit my 50s, it was like, I started to grow. By the way, I have not reached, I'm still learning. The more I learn, the more I realize I need to learn, okay? Growing up, I couldn't connect with others in a deep and meaningful way, professionally or personally. I had success in business, as an employee most of my life, and I had success, but I was missing something. Why? By the way, if you want to get a sales and marketing analysis for your sales process and marketing strategy, Chaz Horn, my first name, last name, so Chaz Horn at chazhorn.com. Send me an email, put sales and marketing analysis. I'll schedule a 20-minute conversation. I'm not going to pitch you. This is for business owners, okay? We'll have a conversation, and it'll be a good conversation. I'll point out the problems, why it's happening, and then most importantly, give you a path forward to predictable sales. All right. So I had success, but I was missing something. Why? One of the main reasons is I suppressed my emotions most of my life. And because of that, it kept me from understanding and managing my emotions. If you're like me and put it in the chat, okay? This is a safe community. Just put it, the more you talk about your shame, the less it has control over your life. The more you talk about your shame, the less imprisoned you are by it. For most of my life, I was imprisoned with shame because I never talked about it. Okay. So it kept me from understanding and managing my emotions. And remember the definition of emotional intelligence, the ability to accurately recognize and understand and manage your own emotions and that of others. It starts with ourselves. As I started to understand and realize my own emotions, I began to realize how much my emotions had been controlling me my entire life and how little control I had over them. Today, I want to share what I learned in my journey to become more emotionally intelligent. And again, full disclosure, I've come a long way. and the farther I've come, the more I've learned, the more I realize I need to. So I'm not the foremost expert on emotional intelligence, but I have learned a lot. And I believe I'm going to give you 3 takeaways that will help you be more emotionally intelligent with yourself and with others. Okay. I went from a place of lack of fulfillment in direction to having a life of joy, peace, fulfillment, permeated by that joy and happiness. It revolutionized how I approached marketing and sales because I started approaching people based on their motivators, not mine. A lot of time in business, it's about selling as opposed to serving. When I started to understand this, and I started my business in 2016, I put the foundation for our marketing strategy, intention to serve. The first step in our sales process, intention to serve. Now, it was a head knowledge. 2 years into my business in 2018, it went from a head knowledge to heart knowledge. Because I was growing, it made sense intellectually, but when it went from my head to heart, that's when I really started to make a lot deeper connections and my business really started to grow. Again, send me an email, chazhorn@chazhorn.com, first last name, put sales and marketing analysis in the subject line, and 20 minutes, I'll analyze your sales process and marketing strategy. Okay, send me an email. Okay, today I want to show you how you can become more emotionally intelligent, which will lead to more business success and a more fulfilled life. When I begin to understand my gap, my emotional intelligence gap, in understanding and controlling my own emotions, as well as understanding how to influence other people's emotions, I had a huge paradigm shift. My perspective changed. I realized there was so much more to life. I dove into book after book. I started listening to podcast after podcast. I went through programs that helped me become more aware of who I was. At the heart of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. I looked to change my internal programming, my thought process. We are, you are, I am, where we are and going the direction we are because of the story we tell ourselves. Many times we're so lacking in self-awareness, and I'll speak to myself, that I didn't know the story I was telling myself. And this is really, really important. Key distinction. You see the world, I see the world, not as it is, but as we are. I know Stephen Covey said that, someone else said that, and I want to give them credit. I can't remember who it was. You see the world, I see the world, not as it is, but as we are. And so when we don't understand our own emotions and we have stuff from our past that influence our perspective, we miss out on having the correct perspective and understanding ourselves and others, okay? You see the world as you are, not as it is. If you don't understand your emotions, why you have them, you're misinterpreting what you are seeing because your perspective is off, okay? Been there, done that, ouch. It wasn't a pretty sight. That's the critical ingredient for emotional intelligence, becoming self-aware. Maybe you're like me and don't or didn't have a healthy thought process instilled to you as you were growing up, let me just speak to that real quick. We're not responsible for how we are raised, but we are 100% responsible for changing who we are as adults, okay? So maybe like me, you didn't have a healthy way to deal with emotions and understand emotions. And that's why you didn't understand why you have certain emotions, and you didn't understand when you have an emotion, what that's a signal for you. Okay, let me say this again, because I didn't say that very clearly. Emotions are signals. Emotions are neither bad or good. I really had a problem with that. I seriously did. By the way, say if you agree with this, if this is emotion is a signal trying to tell you something, put yes in the chat. Okay. And I had a problem with understanding emotions are neither good nor bad, because angry, that's a bad emotion. It's a signal that something's going on in your body. Let me dig into this. I need to understand if you're having a feeling of jealousy, why is that happening? If you're having a feeling of being anxious, why? Why is that going on? If you're being envious, why is that happening in your mind? It's a signal to something, and you need to identify it and get to the core of it. So rather than your emotions influencing you, let's learn how to understand and influence our emotions so that we have better, deeper, more fulfilling relationships in life and business. Get ready to take notes, okay? I'm going to give you practical information to increase your emotional intelligence. I like practical information better than, I'm going to give you some value. That word gets overused, right? Practical information for you to increase your emotional intelligence. And again, if you want a sales and marketing analysis, send me an email, chazhorn@chazhorn, first last name, put sales and marketing analysis, and we'll have a 20-minute conversation. It'll be a good conversation if you're a business owner, okay? Get ready to take notes. Here are 3 things to help you grow in emotional intelligence. The first one, I know I said at the core, it's understanding your own emotions, but I know you're here probably understanding, how can I use emotional intelligence, be better at emotional intelligence, grow in emotional intelligence, so I can better understand other people, and so I can grow my business. I can be better at sales. I can be better at marketing. So the first thing I'm going to do is help you understand how to influence others and become more emotionally intelligent, okay? Ready to take notes? Think 3D, okay? 3-dimensional. Look at things in a 3-dimensional way. Remember I was saying we see things, I think Stephen Covey, and there's someone else who had that quote, we see things as we are, not as it is. And so if that's true, and there's lots of studies that say that there is, and if we have a past, and all of us have a past, the experience from our past warp our perspective of what's going on in front of us. So this 3-dimensional way is going to help you, okay? Typically, we look at things in the lens of our past, which keeps us from building healthy, strong relationships. That is the opposite of emotional intelligence. We look at things in a 1-dimensional way, our perspective, okay? And if you look at the world, there's more and more people being restrictive into our tribal groups, being offended because we're looking at things based on how we see things, not as to how the world is. So let me give you an example with one of my clients on this 3-dimensional process. This is really cool. When I learned this, it was, well, let me get into it and you can find out for yourself, okay? Let's learn how to go from 1-dimensional to 3-dimensional, 3D, by going through the story of my client. My client, we'll call her Velveeta, not her real name. I know, cheesy pseudonym, not her name. I've changed the name to protect the guilty. My client met with a prospect a couple of times, and ended up presenting her offer to the prospect. He said he wanted to move forward. Yay! And they're on Zoom. They're talking with Zoom. Velveeta and her soon-to-be client were talking, and he got his credit card out to pay her $5K consulting fee. And so she's inputting the information, 5528. And right about that time, she's put 5528 into her payment processing thing. The guy, her soon-to-be client, gets a phone call. Velveeta, hold on a second. I got to take this. Yes? Seriously? Wow. Okay. Hold on a second. Velveeta, I got to take this. Please follow up with me. And he was gone. She went from a client paying her $5K, giving her the four first numbers of his credit card, to getting a phone call and gone. And so she was like, what just happened? He told her, I got to take this. Please follow up with me. And gone. Imagine that being you. What just happened? Okay. So what would you do? He said follow up. So she followed up and followed up and followed up and followed up. And you can guess she followed up. Okay. For an entire week, she followed up, and her soon-to-be client, who was going to pay her $5K, had disappeared. She got 4 digits of his credit card number, and he was gone. This is when I talked to my client, okay, Velveeta. We had a conversation. It was about 8 days later, a week after this happened, and she had followed up many times, 12, 15 times, something like that, through phone calls and emails and text messages, okay, to no avail. So I talked with my client after all of this, and she was frustrated. She was sad. She was going through all sorts of different emotions, all right? She was bummed and confused. Wouldn't you be? I would be. I told her, I get it. I would be too. And so I took her through the 3-dimensional process. I wanted you to hear a story and how it's used so it could be more practical to you. So as I took her through the 3-dimensional process, we did the first dimension. And I said, Velveeta, the first thing we need to do is let's identify the story you're telling yourself. This is the first dimension, okay? Remember, we see things, we are going in the way we're going in life based on the story we tell ourselves. We see things not as they are, but as we are. So this is where we identify the story we're telling ourselves. And so I said, what's the story you're telling yourself? And we kind of went back and forth. She was telling herself all sorts of stories. She said, I screwed up. This guy is a bleep, 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 bleep. Okay. She was struggling with imposter syndrome because she was excited. It was a new business. This is one of her first clients. Okay. By the way, when something happens that's traumatic like this, maybe that's not the right word. Yeah, it is. Something that's bad, that's negative, that happens in your life, it's essential. And this is part of the first dimensional process. It's essential to scream, cry, cuss, but do it privately, okay? Not on somebody. That ain't going to do anybody good. You need to get those emotions out, okay, in a private space so you can deal with those. Just to let you know, I suppressed my emotions most of my life, as I alluded to earlier. Allowing your emotions to control you, and you scream at someone, causes damage to you and to them. That's your emotions controlling you. That's why it's important to get your emotions out. Unexpressed emotions, and this is all part of 1D, the first dimension, unexpressed emotions never die. They are buried alive and will come forth much uglier. Any Walking Dead fans here? Put yes in the chat. Imagine that being your emotion, dead and coming back to life. Or unexpressed emotions never die. They are buried alive and they'll come forth much uglier, okay? You got to express those. Express them privately, not at someone. Have you ever blown up at someone? I have. I'm not proud of it. And that causes a lot of damage because I was suppressing my emotions. Most of my life, I suppressed my emotions. And my mom died, my dad died back to back. And I could no longer suppress my emotions at that time because it was too much. And it's all sorts of different things were coming out. I didn't know what was going on. My emotions were taking control of my life, and I got to a very dark place in 2004. It wasn't pretty. 24/7, my emotions were controlling me, okay? So she identified the story she was telling herself. She got those emotions out. She was screaming. She's like, I'm mad. I'm upset. I don't know what's going on. She got them out, okay? And so that's the first dimension, identifying your story and get your emotions out. 2D, that was first dimensional. 2D of the 3D, the second dimension of the three-dimension process is what are the facts without emotions, okay? This, when you take emotions out of it, that's like 90% of it. I mean, do you agree? Put it in the chat if you agree with that. It's difficult taking the emotions out, right? We make decisions based on emotions. So when you remove the emotions and just look at things factual, that's the second dimension, okay? So she identified the story she was telling herself. She got her emotions out. The second D was, what are the facts without emotion? So I said, Velveeta, what are the facts without emotion? The guy said he was interested. And not only did he say he was interested, he started to give her his credit card number to her. The first 4 digits of his credit card. The guy did get a phone call, okay? The guy did say follow up. He's not responding, okay? So those are the facts. As she started to work through the facts, it's like, okay, that makes sense. It was like a heavy weight was removed from her shoulders. And she even said that. It feels like a 200-pound weight has just been removed from my shoulders. She was starting to see things from a different perspective. And this is only with 2 dimensions. Let's go to the third dimension, okay? So 3D, the third dimension is what if the opposite or a slightly different story is the truth? This can be difficult, but a necessity for increasing our emotional intelligence. As I talked with my client, I had her list ways the opposite story could be true. And so as we're going through here, she listed some things. She said, and I'm reading from her list, maybe something happened to him, okay? Maybe that call was about a loved one and something terrible happened to a loved one. If terrible happened to my husband, she said, I probably wouldn't be responding either. Now that 200-pound weight became a 300-pound weight that was removed from her shoulders. Now that I had her attention and she started to look at things with a 3-dimensional way with more emotional intelligence, I gave her a technique within the sales process to get her prospects' attention by going with the right intention, okay? So, and the results, the 3D model helped her grow in EI, emotional intelligence, which gave her a better perspective. And with coaching her on a technique, she landed that client. And just to let you know what I did, I said, reach out to him with, I call this technique, throwing yourself under the bus. It has to be with sincerity and going with the intention to serve. I said, reach out to him, send him a text message and say, I'm gonna leave you a voice message. If you don't answer the phone, I want to apologize, okay? That's using emotional intelligence. That's a pattern interrupt. She sent him a text message. She called him. The guy answered. And she said, Bob, I want to apologize. Obviously, I missed something. I did something wrong. I'm not very good in the sales process. And he goes, either am I. She said, I'm best at helping with consulting in this problem you need. So by her, with humility and sincerity, the intention to serve, she was able to use a pattern interrupt to get his attention, and he'd just gotten really busy. And so by doing that, they had a conversation. Guess what? 5K paid in full. So that three-dimensional process. Say, if you like the 3D process, put 3D in the comments, okay? So now that's helping you understand going through your own emotions and also influencing other people by going through the 3D process. Now, that's a great way to work with your prospects, your clients, your team. Send me a direct message if you want to get a sales and marketing analysis. ChazHorn at chazhorn.com for email, or just a direct message on LinkedIn, okay? Okay, so look at things the 3D way. First way, the story you're telling yourself. Second, or first dimension, the story you're telling yourself. Second dimension, what are the facts without emotions? And third dimension, what if the opposite story is true, okay? All right, now I'm giving you 3 things to help you become more emotionally intelligent. Okay, so that's the first thing, the 3-dimensional process. The second thing is biohacks to improve emotional intelligence. A biohack is a way to tap into your biology to change it quickly, okay? If you're wondering, what's a biohack, okay? You can literally change the chemistry in your brain like that. This is cool. This has been life-changing for me, okay? I remember one time I had a debilitating headache, and this is going to go to this, how to become more emotionally intelligent in understanding your own emotions. Remember, I suppressed my emotions most of my life, and even though I'm understanding them better, my go-to is still to suppress them. So I had a debilitating headache. It went on day after day and week after week, okay? My headache and my emotions were controlling me. Have you ever been, have a chronic headache, and it's just like, everything is, every little problem is, boom, it's expanded because of the headache. And so my headache was affecting me, my emotions were controlling me. And around this time, I was talking with a coach who was more emotionally intelligent than me. And she said this, very insightful, very self-aware. And she said, maybe you need to cry. I'm like, what? I need to cry? And she told me a story about where she gets a certain pain. I can't remember, in her elbow or her neck or something like that. It was a signal of her body telling her that she needed to cry. And she, like me, grew up suppressing her emotions. And she went on to tell me that when she got this, wherever this ache was in her body, it was a signal. Remember, understanding your own emotions and controlling them is the beginning of emotional intelligence. So she went on to tell me she would put on a romance movie, and for an hour and a half, she'd watch it, and then she would start crying. And I'm talking to her. I'm like, man, I don't want to spend a whole hour and a half just to be able to cry. So what I did is I went to YouTube and I searched how to cry real hard, real fast. That's right. I YouTube searched how to cry real hard, real fast. I figure if this lady who watched YouTube built a house without any construction experience, I can learn how to cry. So 30 seconds into this video, it was about soldiers coming home and their kids and the wife. 30 seconds into this video I'm watching, I was bawling like a baby. And here's the cool thing. As I was bawling like a baby, all of these emotions were coming to the surface, and I was able to identify. Now, I was the one that was proactively making myself cry, because I'm not, as a guy, it's like crying is weak. You're not a man if you cry. I've heard all these, these messages all my life in the Western world. So as I was crying, these emotions were coming to the surface, and I was able to identify them. They were coming to the surface, but I had that headache because I suppressed my emotions. And when you suppress your emotions, It leads to disease. It leads to stress. Okay? You want to know something? After doing that cry therapy, which I went on to call it, is my headache totally disappeared. Not only for 5-10 minutes, but the entire day and the next day. And after that, now, if I have that same type of headache that's starting to come on, I know it's time for cry therapy. Yes, I do cry therapy. As a matter of fact, I did cry therapy today. I thought I would do it just to be in the right frame of mind as I'm having this session. So I pull up YouTube and look at videos, how to cry real hard, real fast, okay? Now, I've heard from women who say this to me, Chaz, I have no problems crying. I have 2 people on my team, 2 women on my team that say, Chaz, I have no problem crying. And I find this is more true for women than men, but there's exceptions. But if you suppress your emotions, try to cry therapy. YouTube search how to cry real hard, real fast. If you know certain things pull on your heartstrings, soldiers coming home, this is a way for you to get your emotions out. I now do this preemptively, proactively before I get a headache. Okay, I usually do it like 2 to 3 times a week, depending upon the stress I'm having in the week. Okay, and it frees up my mind and it gives me clarity on my own emotions. Remember, we talked about suppressing your emotions. Unexpressed emotions never die. They are buried alive and will come forth much uglier. Picture a person dead in the ground and buried. You dig them up, not a pretty sight, right? Walking Dead, okay? That's kind of like your emotions coming to life. You don't want them to go get buried and come, you want to deal with them. So instead of suppressing your emotions, try cry therapy. By me doing this on a regular basis, I'm more aware of my own emotions. I have more fulfillment. I have better conversations with other people. Remember, at the heart of emotional intelligence is understanding your own emotions, okay? All right, so here's the second biohack. The first thing was the 3D process. The second one was cry therapy, okay? When I first started talking about cry therapy, I'm like, I can't believe I'm a dude talking about cry therapy. But I don't care. It helps and it will help you. It's helped me tremendously, okay? So here's the second biohack that will help you. Get quiet, lie down, sit comfortably, okay? I call this think-atation, okay? Think-atation. I do diaphragm breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, some people call it. I get some of my best ideas for business and insights into people during these times. When you do this, and I do it, the idea is a minimum of 10 minutes a day. My goal is 3 of these a day. Typically, I'm at around 2 a day, okay? This is the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. It's part of my morning routine, okay? When you do this with this diaphragmatic breathing, now it's not meditation because meditation is more absence of thought. I always struggled with having absence of thought because then I was thinking, what's the, okay, I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail right now. So I just went to diaphragm breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, and I just allow my brain to think while I'm breathing. I usually do it lying down. I have my feet up on a pillow. I have my head in a place that's comfortable, and it takes my brain into a theta state. When your brain goes into a theta state, it's a more creative state. Here's an example. Have you ever been in a shower and you get like really creative ideas? You're like, where do I write this down, right? And then you get a shower, it's like, oh man, what was that idea? So it's because of the water and the kind of the trance and the warm and just the flow and the noise, it gets your brain into a theta state. The cycle, and I'm going to go into details how exactly I do this, okay? Psychological studies have revealed that breathing practices helps with emotional enhancement, emotional intelligence, and understanding and processing through your own emotions, okay? It helps me identify my emotions and why I'm having them. And sometimes, as I told you, I have a tendency to suppress things. A lot of times I'll do the diaphragm breathing, a diaphragmatic breathing, and it's like, oh, I'm anxious about this. Oh, this is why. Okay. You've got to process your thoughts to reduce stress or eliminate it. And that's what these biohacks do, which leads to increasing your emotional intelligence, being able to understand and control your emotions as well as that of others. Okay. So my process is this. I lay down and it's just, I breathe through the nose and into the belly, into the diaphragm. And if you haven't done it, diaphragm breathing, put your fingers like an inch below your belly button and fill your belly fill up as you breathe into it. Very important to go into your belly. Okay, it'll put you into a theta state. It will help you become self-aware of your emotions and being able to work through them, as well as coming up with great and creative ideas. Okay. So three-dimensional process. First dimension, what's the story you're telling yourself? Second dimension, what are the facts without emotion? And then what if the opposite story is true? First dimension, the story you're telling yourself. Okay. Facts without emotion. And then the third is what if the opposite story is true? The biohack, the second way to help increase emotional intelligence, cryotherapy. And the third way is think-atation. Diaphragmatic breathing, a minimum of 10 minutes. I mean, you can do it less just to start with to get in practice, and it helps you process and think through those things, okay? So I do this first thing in the morning. That's part of my morning routine. And in the morning, it's usually when your cortisol levels are at the highest. That's a stress chemical. And so having a good morning routine with not going to your phone, having a breathing practice helps immensely. Okay. So with emotional intelligence, if you would like to connect to get I need your help. So please hang with me here. If you would like to get a sales and marketing analysis, send me an email, chazhorn@chazhorn.com. 20 minutes. You'll be glad you did. If you have a business, please reach out to me. Okay. This is where I need your help. I do these master classes every week. Okay. If there's something you'd like to hear, if you have questions about it, let me know. Send me a DM, okay? I also do these on Thursday, and then I do a Q&A session on Tuesday. The Q&A session is I'll answer any question about sales and marketing, and I'll solve your problem right there on the spot. It's an audio event on LinkedIn. If you're familiar with Clubhouse, LinkedIn now has audio events. It's pretty cool. That voice connection and having those conversations. So ask me about that if you want to join this. If you got value, I hate that word. If you found this helpful, invite your team members, invite your prospects, invite your clients to join me, okay? Comment with your takeaways, and let me pull up to see some of the comments we got going on here. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. All right. Tara, great to see you. And thank you. Great stuff. Thank you. Yeah, actually, it's Signal. Good stuff, Tara. Okay. Jen. And Tara, she works specifically with emotional intelligence, so reach out to her. Let's rock. Let's rock. All right. Thanks for joining me. If you want a sales and marketing analysis, my voice is gone. If you want a sales and marketing analysis, email me at chazhorn@chazhorn.com. Thank you. Have a great day. Go rock this day.